Baker here for the Victim Survivor Conqueror Ministry, coming to you on this Tuesday night on Facebook Live and also YouTube Live. All right, as you tune in to Facebook, if you would, please hit one of the buttons. And also, we would love to hear from you. If you'd like to leave a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Okay? All right, let's get started with tonight's material. All right. Last week, we talked about when we should confront. Okay? So tonight, we're going to be looking at when we should not be confronting, when we should not confront. Okay? So, let's get into it. All right. Number one, we should not confront when we are not the right. Okay? If you're not the one that's been offended, or if you're not responsible for the one that was offended, then you may not be the one who should confront. Okay? However, God could use you to help the person who is responsible to confront. Okay? Like one who seizes a dog by the ears is a passerby who meddles in a quarrel not his own. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 17. Okay? So that's what it's, if it's not yours to be involved in, then don't grab the ears of the dog. It's not your quarrel. It's not your confrontation. It's not your fight. Okay? All right. The second time is when it's not the right time. Okay? So, we may be the right person, but it may not be the right time. Okay? Or maybe our heart's not right. Maybe we have not seeked God in His timing, His instructions on when to confront. So, again, you may be the right person, but is it the right time? There's a time for everything. A time to be silent and a time to speak. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. Okay? So yes, there is a time for everything. Okay? Number 3, when you are uncertain of the facts. Okay? Be sure you're fully informed of what is happening. Sometimes asking the right questions and listening objectively will reveal that you are simply misperceiving the situation. Okay? So, you may not be the right person, or it may not be the right time. Or we may have injected ourselves into a situation that we know nothing about. Okay? Example, you're walking through the hallways of church. You hear two brothers talking, and they mention somebody by name, and they're carrying on a conversation about this person. And you hear parts of it. Okay? So, and you go off and you tell this person, hey, these two people, they were back there in the hallway talking about you, saying that you done this and you done that, and that's not what happened. That wasn't the facts. So, how can we know the fact? How can you know for sure what the facts of the situation are? By communicating, right? Listening and speaking. Listening and speaking. Okay? He who answers before listening, that is folly in his shame. Okay? So what's the word telling us? Is to listen before you answer. Okay? Not he who answers before listening. Okay? Because if you answer before you listen, you will probably wind up being shamed yourself when you think that maybe the two people that was doing the talking should be the ones ashamed of themselves. But no, you went off and went into wrong direction and had no idea what was being said or what was the meaning behind the thing about what was being said. Okay? Number 4, when it's best to overlook a minor offense, you may find that overlooking minor offenses allows God a chance to convict others of their errors. So, when in doubt, erring on the side of restraint and mercy is generally best. Okay? This is, and I look back on this one right here as something that I wish I would have done differently raising my kids. That there's probably times when they might have committed a minor offense and I didn't overlook it. Because when someone does commit a minor offense, I believe that if we will allow God the chance to convict them of what they've done, and that God can use it as a teaching moment for that person. And so this is one of my regrets, I guess you would say, about raising kids, is that I didn't overlook minor things. Why? Because there's enough of big things that come about in life, and when you're trying to raise a family, that there's that we need to try to learn to overlook minor issues, minor offenses. Because why? Because if we allow these minor things to mount up, then eventually they will become big things, won't they? Yeah, they will. And so the same thing is with our life. And when if somebody says something and you're really not, say you don't get bummed out about it, you don't get really hurt, deeply hurt, it just kind of well, if we've not done anything about the big things in our life, then when little things come about, all they do is pile up on top of other things. So I do believe it is best that if we can, is to try to overlook minor offenses, or go to God, tell him, say, God, I forgive this person for that. I don't think that's really what they meant, and I forgive them, and let's just move on. because I think it will work out better for everybody in the long run. Okay? Hatred stirs up dissension, but love covers all wrong. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 12. I'll get it right there in a minute. Okay? But yeah, anger, hatred, that stirs up dissension. Okay? It's when we show love, is when it covers a multitude of wrongs. Number 5, when you are committing the same sin. Okay? So let's look at this. Paradoxically, you can be most offended by people who are engaging in the very behaviors with which you yourself struggle. We are hypocritical if we try to correct others when we ourselves are guilty of the same thing. First, correct your own behavior, then you can help correct the behavior of someone else. Okay? Let's just say that, well, like with me, okay, I'm overweight, so food is an issue for me. Okay, so if I see somebody struggling with their weight, and I sit down and I look at them and I say, look what all they got on their plate. No wonder they're as big as they are, you know. Well, if I'm struggling with weight myself, I'm probably not the right person to be involved in someone else's struggle with that. Now, would I be able to say, hey, listen, I understand what you're going through, how you're stressed, because I struggle with it too. Okay? But not to correct them. Okay? Another example. Let's just say drinking of alcohol. Okay? I don't need to go to a brother or sister and tell them, hey, you are, man, I think you are drinking a little too much. You know, I'm really concerned about you. Now, if I'm coming from that point of view that I'm concerned, okay. But if the very next day they're driving down the road, they look up and they see me coming out of a bar, not knowing if I've had too much to drink, you know, they went in and had one drink, and that was. But they see me coming out of a bar. Well, how dare him? How dare him correct me about my drinking when here he is coming out of a bar? Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. Is when we're dealing with the same sin, we have to be careful on who we call out, how we call them out, and so forth. Okay. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take that speck out of your eye, when all the time there is plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Matthew chapter 7, verses 3 through 5. Absolutely. Before we go to somebody like this, we need to examine their situation that it appears that they're in. Okay, we need to pray about that situation, but we need to look at ourselves. We've got to go back and say, okay, yeah, I can see that speck of dust in my brother's eye. Now, God, do I have a plank? Am I so blinded that I have a plank sticking out of my eye? Because I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people say that they leave the church is because of hypocrites. Okay? Because, wait a minute, I've got a little speck of dust here, but you're coming to me and you got a plank sticking out of your eye, but you're trying to chastise me about a speck of dust. So we need to be very careful on how we approach things and how we handle things. Okay? All right, number 6. When your motive is purely your own rights and not the benefit of another person. Because a lot of times when we go into confrontation, we do it only because of what we feel is our rights. That we have a right to this, we have a right to that. Okay? A my rights attitude will only damage the spirit of a positive confrontation. Okay? Therefore, consider another one's interest over your own. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interests of others. Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Okay? What is the golden rule? What is the golden rule? We are to not trust, but trust. We should treat others as we want to be treated. Isn't it? That's the golden rule, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And I'm gonna tell you something. We're on Facebook Live right now, and I'm thankful for Facebook of being able to continue this ministry during this time, this pandemic and everything. But I see so much of people posting, and this is not against Facebook. This is against the people posting this. Is I don't know how many posts I have seen that. Well, if you treat me right, then I will return the favor and I will treat you right. First off, does that line up with the Word of God? No, it does not. That is not in the Word of God anywhere. No. It says right here. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interests of others. That means we ought to take in consideration the other person. Because just, like I say, the golden rule is not, well, if you treat me right, I'll treat you right. No, that's not what it says. We are to do unto others as we would have them to do unto us. All right, number 7. When you have a vindictive motive, before you confront, genuine forgiveness of the offender is imperative. In your heart, release the offender into the hands of God. Your confrontation must not be to satisfy your own secret desire to take revenge or to get even. Okay? I don't know how many people that I see this issue from them. You know, they come into class and when we get around and when we're talking about forgiveness, they say, "Oh yeah, I don't have no problem forgiving. I forgive real easily. I can forgive." Um, yeah, I can forgive. I can forgive, but I can't forget. And you know what? I just want them to pay. I want them to go through something where they have to pay for what they've done. Okay? Well, that is having a vindictive motive. Okay? There's nowhere in the Bible that says talks about forgiveness and then it adds a but. That's only us. Us as humans do that. Well, I can forgive, and we either will say if they will do so and so, or I can forgive, but I wanted to, as we're driving to work tomorrow, I want to have 4 flat tires going to work. Okay? That's not forgiveness, people. That's not forgiveness. That's not God's forgiveness. Okay? So try to make sure that your confrontations is not about satisfying your desire to take revenge or to get even with somebody. Okay? Go into your confrontation being led by the Spirit of God. And if you do that, you will probably find that your confrontations will be much better in the long run. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. Romans chapter 12, verse 17. Oh, don't repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. Okay. Number 8. When the consequences of confrontation outweighs those of the offense. Okay? Look at the degree of the offense before you confront. Some battles pay little dividends, and they are just not worth the fight. Okay? Absolutely, they're not worth the fight. This is what I was talking about with my kids. I wish I would have let more little things go. Okay? Better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. Chapter 17, verse 1. Okay? I'd rather my apple pie be a little dry and there be peace and quiet than to have feasting, a house full of feasting that is nothing but filled with strife. Okay? That's not what God's about. That's not what it's about when we're supposed to be around family, about people that we love. Number 9. When the person you want to confront has a habit of foolishness and quarreling. Okay? What person are we talking about? Avoid confronting people who are unwilling to recognize their own offenses. If you cannot avoid the confrontation, you may need to take others with you to help in confronting these persons. Learning God's way. This is what this is all about. And over the next couple weeks, we'll begin that part of this lesson. Okay? Don't have anything to do with foolish and stupid arguments, because you know that they produce quarrels, and the Lord's servant must not quarrel. Instead, he must be kind to everyone, able to teach, not resentful. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 23 and 24. He must be kind to everyone. Okay? God has set forth rules on how we are to be treated and how we are to treat others. Yeah, but Kim, not everybody follows what God says. You're right, they don't. But here's the thing, okay, that you need to, here's a question you need to answer yourself, is this: do you want to be the one that God looks down on or God chastises because you did not do things the way that you've been instructed to do? Or would you rather be the one that God can say, you know, he done it the right way. He went to confront because of a wrong that happened. He's trying to make something right out of a wrong. So which person would you want to be? Well, I'd rather be the one that maybe God pats on the back, or, you know, God says, you know, that we done good, that we followed his word, that we ran the race before us. Number 10, when the setting aside your rights will benefit an unbeliever. Okay? Jesus modeled suffering for righteousness' sake, and he exhorts you to endure hardship for the sake of exposing God's character to an unbeliever. Okay? This person may have said something that offend you. Okay? But what if you go and you just show this person God's love, God's mercy, God's grace? Okay? Yeah. You know, you've been hurt. What was said hurt. What was done hurt. But what if you showed love, grace, mercy? And what if just that little bit of love, that little bit of mercy, and that little bit of grace turns this person's life around and they find Jesus Christ. So allow room for God to work in someone else's heart by showing restraint. It is commendable if a man bears up under a pain of unjust suffering because he is conscious of God. To this you were called, because Messiah suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 19 and 21. Okay? Number 11. When the person who offended you is your enemy, you may not be the right person to. Sometimes it's best not to confront, but to win them over by blessing them. You and your offender are ultimately responsible to God for your actions. You are not responsible for the other person's actions. You're only responsible for your own actions or reactions. But the peace might be forgiving and blessing your offender without ever confronting the offensive behavior. Love your enemy. Pray for those who persecute you. May be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Matthew chapter 5, verse 44 and 45. Okay, again, showing love, mercy, and grace. We are very quick to want God's love, God's mercy, God's grace. But are we as quick to offer it to someone else? Number 12. The confrontation will be ineffective and reprisal severe. Okay? You may not be able to effectively confront a person who has a violent temper or who is likely to exact severe retribution on you or someone you love. Okay? Whoever corrects a mocker invites insult. Whoever rebukes a wicked man incurs abuse. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 7. Okay? You do need to confront someone in this situation that has violent temper, that is prone to physical abuse, then you definitely need to take others with you to do the confrontation. Okay? And again, we're going to get more into detail about that later on. Okay? And that's part of God's plan. But he has a 3-step plan for confrontations. Okay? We really want you to stay tuned over the next couple of weeks as we get into that. Get more into the meat of how to do confrontation. We've been learning why we should or why we shouldn't. Now we're going to be getting into how to do it. Okay? We're going to be stopping right here tonight, but we'll pick up next week with, if I have a Christian friend who is continuing to live in sin, am I obligated to confront that friend? Okay? And we will answer this question and more next week at Victim Survivor Conqueror Ministry. Here is on Facebook Live at 7 p.m. and also on YouTube Live. Okay? All right. Announcement coming up. January the 6th. Okay? if you are in the Odessa, Midland area, we are going to start back with our in-class support group meetings. Okay, it will be held at Hatara in Odessa at 3319 Youre Avenue, Odessa, Texas. It will begin at 7 p.m. Okay? We have plenty of room for social distancing, so we can try to learn. It's the topics that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about confrontation, anger, guilt, fear, forgiveness, reconciliation, and more. Okay, and it will the first meeting will be January the 6th at 7 p.m. and then we'll meet every Thursday night at 7 p.m. there on Golder Avenue. Okay, all your class materials will be provided. Okay, we'll be doing some exercises, some different things in class. Okay, so check out our Facebook page. If you haven't, go to Victim Survivor Comfort Ministry, and there is an ad for this support group starting January the 6th. Also, go to our website. Our website's not on here. Oh, I forgot it tonight. Okay, but our website is vscministry.com. Okay, just V is Victor, S is in Steve, C is in Charlie, ministry. Okay. All right. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. God bless.